I was going to film an hour-long monologue on sights just because over the years people took essentially the eyes off of their rifles when scopes became popular, and somehow I ended up learning a lot about iron sights. But I'm going to spare you today, and we have quite a different show. We ended up filming a Zoom call with Vince Myers, and he's an expert in iron sights and makes fantastic iron sights. One of them is sitting on this 1895 carbine in 3040 Craig, which is sitting there. But really, I just wanted to show you different sights. We were going to make a video later where you can probably see a Skinner, some Sacos. That's the KRA. They make also other front sight blades and so on. Anyway, I hope you like the Zoom call. It was quite interesting, different format for me and for the channel. And for you, I hope you can find something interesting in there. Vince is quite interesting and very talented, obviously, machinist. And, you know, usually I'm buying sights from New England Custom Guns or from Germany or from Austria. But it's nice to have first-class sights made on this side of the pond. So I hope you enjoy and have a look. Let me know what you think. So why don't you just introduce KRA and tell us about your company. I know you're in Idaho. Fantastic products. You know, I have the highest opinion. I took your sites and showed them around, and everybody's super impressed. But maybe you do the talking, and then I'd like to show this rifle.
Sure. I'm Vince Myers, and I own KRA Customs, and I kind of started doing some gunsmithing stuff, but I kind of developed a rear sight that's micrometer adjustable for lever actions like Marlins and Henrys, the ones with the flat top receiver on them. And I kind of saw a little bit of a hole in the marketplace for the sights, you know, for one that mounts to the top of the rifle that's micrometer adjustable and made out of steel. And so I developed one. I started designing it about a year and a half ago. And so that's kind of the main thing I've been doing and been manufacturing, but I've kind of gone more into making front sights as well and some other products as well coming out soon, also related to iron sights and aperture receiver sights on lever actions. So
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Well, I'll show you what I did, Vince. So I have guns coming and going, right? And I wanted to have the sight on a Marlin because I think that's most appropriate. Then I went into my vaults and realized no Marlins. So I took out my 1895. Um, it's the carbine. This is
okay,
yeah 3040 Craig. Um, just a
nice.
wonder. Yeah, you can see how perfect this is, right? I've shown people
Yeah,
this is ideal. Now, the Marlin will obviously be even better because that's what it was designed for. But I don't know if you have any sites with you right there, because you could walk people through how the site works. Might be better than if I do it.
sure.
But what's nice about this, I'm going to take off this site. I left it on just because people watching these kinds of videos often are critical about removing sites. So it's easy to take this off. This is not a very precise
Yeah.
site. That's the problem with most of the sites. You know this on the Marlin,
Hmm.
on all of them. And with the KRA, we achieve like a refined degree of accuracy. Unbelievable, actually. This one, even with the factory site, which is really crude, but even with the factory site, I can still use the aperture because you've got the height in the back, so it's ideal.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe
Yeah.
you could talk about the adjustments and the blade front sights, just anything that you want people to know.
Sure. Yeah, I actually had no idea that those Winchester 1895s were actually drilled and tapped on the bolt for that hole pattern that
They're
would fit
not
my sight
no,
until I saw your picture.
well, you're an informed man. It isn't. It isn't drilled and tapped, and I didn't want to do that. And so
Oh,
um, I used an adhesive, Vince. There's an adhesive.
okay.
Yeah. And because the site is so light and it's 3040 Craig, uh,
Yeah.
nothing happened. I actually asked people to remove it to try to get it off. Uh,
Okay.
you would have to take a hammer um, and smash it off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you can see it's just
I,
yeah, it's just perfect. And
now, back in the day, I do seem to remember seeing some 1895s with an aperture sight on the bolt like that. Uh,
yep,
Perhaps even from the factory.
there were some that people installed that rode with the bolt, and then the most famous one, I think, they call
The
the
one that lands.
ladder. You know that
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
climbing lineman, something. But I like this a lot better, and the KRA sight is properly adjustable. The other ones had pretty crude. Well, you know how crude
Right.
they were, right? Uh, these rifles are actually capable of remarkable precision, but they were always lacking sights. It's the same with the Marlin. When people find out that they can adjust things down to really fine levels with your sights, they may abandon their scopes. My experience is that for most woods hunting, except for dawn and dusk, you're better off with the aperture sight. You shoot quicker, and
Oh,
with
yeah.
yeah, you know the story.
Yeah. 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 It makes a big difference, but a lot of people don't know that, and they don't realize that. Um, and something, I actually liked aperture sights for a long time before even fully understanding them. Um, it works kind of like the aperture on a camera lens
Mhm.
in increasing depth of field. If people know how a camera lens actually works,
Yep.
when you stop down an aperture and you make it smaller, you increase the depth of field, or from the camera lens out, as far as how much stuff is in focus.
Yep.
And aperture sight works the same way with your eye. And so if you get that aperture small enough, you can actually get the target and the front sight in focus together. And
Hmm.
that's what really makes a huge difference. But of
Yep.
course, you need a lot of light to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
the smaller the aperture gets, the less light you have. And so it's kind of a balancing act. But still, even when you have to increase the size of the aperture enough to be able to see through it, uh, it still has the front sight more in focus than
Mhm.
if you didn't have it at all.
Yep, I
Um,
agree. Can you walk us through the manufacturing process for, I mean, it's an incredible site just looking at it. Oh, and I noticed you sent me some different apertures. Looks like there's a bigger one and a smaller one, for target or for field
oh,
use.
I actually didn't remember if I did that or not.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I did. I've been shooting with no aperture. I just
Oh, okay, yeah.
because I like that ghost ring kind of effect.
Sure.
It disappears. I didn't notice any. Well, I never am impaired by aperture sights. I find them just the most natural thing to shoot with. But
Yep.
yeah, if you could walk us through, so you start with a block of steel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just square bar stock and cut it down on a bandsaw, and then I have a small CNC mill, and that I mill them out on, um, and it has 6 parts to it that are all machined out
Yeah.
of bar stock, and uh, 3 of them are done on the mill, and then 3 of them are done on a lathe. And I still don't have a CNC lathe, so the one that you see behind me is the one that I use. It's still a manual lathe, but the elevation screw and the windage screw, and then the aperture that you left out are the parts that are made on the lathe. Um, and you can see that the screws. I don't know if it'll pick it up in this camera,
Yep.
but they have an engraving on them, and so it is 8 clicks per rotation. And so I have numbers 1 through 8, and then it also has up with an arrow to let you know what direction you need to turn it to move your point of impact. And then the windage screw
Hmm.
also has the same thing on it. And so that engraving, as well as all of the the divots, I don't know if this will pick it up or not, but all the divots on the underside of the screw that are
Yeah.
drilled
Yeah.
to work with the detent and spring, so that it clicks. All those are done on the mill
What a
as
sight.
well.
That's a lot of
And
work. And you do all
I,
this in your shop in Idaho.
yep,
And
yep. It's just and it's a small shop. Uh, it's just really just a shed that I kind of remodeled, and it's only about 10 by 20 feet. And
amazing.
I also have a manual mill, and I actually designed the site and made the whole thing several times, probably six or eight of them, all on the manual mill before I had a CNC.
Well,
Um,
terrific work, Vince. What about your other products? I noticed you sent me an email and you were mentioning you're either going to go into production or developing some other stuff other than the Aperture site. And I see the blade sites here. Yeah. Oh, there you are. You
there we
disappeared.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Go ahead.
Uh, I guess I'd also mention that the degree of increment, like how much each click adjusts it. The screw thread is 56 threads per inch. And so, there's a bunch of math that you can do that goes into that, but it's 8 clicks per rotation, but it's about 2 thousandths per click. To be even more exact, it's 2.2 thousandths, but um,
Yeah.
it's so it's very finely adjustable, and it's about the same as the old Redfield and the Lyman micrometer adjustable sights. Um,
Mhm.
those are 40 threads per inch, but they have 12 clicks per rotation, and so it ends up being about the same per click. Uh, and when you translate that out, it's going to differ according to what the distance is between your front and rear sight, or the sight radius, as far as how much that would equate to how much it changes your impact downrange or minute of angle. But as roughly most lever actions, I would say probably average about a 22-inch sight radius,
Mhm.
if it has a 20-inch barrel
Yeah.
most of the time. And uh, and that would give this sight about 3/8 MOA. So it would move it about 3/8 of an inch per click.
Hmm. Oh, that's more than fine enough. Completely excellent site. I had these Sacos. Maybe I'll show them on a video or something. I used them for years. I took down and you can see them. They were okay. I mean, they're beautifully made. Um, but the adjustments were always bulky and they just block out so much of the target compared to the KRA, which really in use I found is like a ghost ring. And I like the ears to protect the site. Um, was there an inspiration for these? Is this based on anything or just a Vince original?
Not that, yeah, that one I can't really say that it was necessarily based on anything. Obviously, being around in the firearms industry for so many years, you see things that of course are going to influence you. I mean, I would say about the biggest thing that I didn't really just think of, but was inspired by, was the Redfield site, and just seeing how the screw was retained with a C clamp. And I had a different idea for retaining the screws on my sights first, but when I saw that, I thought, okay, I need to get some retaining clamps, basically. And I ended up using E clamps on these because I can't find C clamps that are actually small enough.
Mhm.
But as far as the styling and design, it's really just kind of a matter of function.
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have ears on purpose to protect it, although they do help with that. But it's more like a support column, for the site to actually be able to operate and have a
Yeah.
track to work on.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to just the solving the issues of, it needs to fit on top of, like a Marlin receiver
Mhm.
without overhanging onto the sloped, angled parts of it, and you've got about 600 thousandths on average to work inside of, and so everything in here has to fit within that, and that was really challenging, and it was for a while I thought it wasn't even going to be possible, but I just kind of kept at it and kept tweaking and changing things a little bit to actually make it work.
But you got it. Is there
Um,
anything that you should mention to um, people who buy for the Marlin and for the Smith and Wesson? First off, does it fit the Smith and Wesson? And is this a straight bolt on? So they just remove the plug screws and
yep.
yep, yeah, for the Smith and Wesson too. Somebody was asking me.
Yeah. I've never handled one, but the Smith and Wesson is the same bolt hole pattern. It's a half inch. It's 500 thousandths from center to center on those screws, and they're number 840 screws is what's on top of the receiver of those rifles. So whether it's a Marlin or a Henry or the Smith and Wesson, and there's some other imported models
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Rossi right
That
now. I
fit
wonder,
with it.
I wonder if the Rossi has the same. Probably. You know the Rossi, maybe.
They make Winchester reproductions. I know that, and
It's
I
a
think are they
I
the
think
ones that make a Marlin reproduction too,
yeah,
or
it's
not really a Marlin.
yeah.
I call them Hepburn designs really because it's the Henry isn't really an exact copy, but it's influenced by the Marlin, and so rather I don't know because Lewis Hepburn is the guy that designed them, so.
Yeah, yeah, yep. No, it's always good to be more accurate. Um, okay, well, excellent. And I don't think there's too much of a mystery about how these work. I was going to say we should walk through, but I think it's just a natural. If you buy these sites from Vince, easy install. There really isn't that much that I can think of to tell
I
people.
guess I guess one thing I would mention that I do hear a lot is the difficulty of being able to actually thread the aperture into what I call that the tombstone, by the way, the part that goes left and right. It's kind
Okay,
of shaped like a old fashioned tombstone,
okay.
and that's threaded to get the it's
Yep.
threaded for the aperture, and and so a lot of people, it's difficult to get your fingers in there to kind of get it threaded in. And uh, I struggled with it for a long time too. And I thought about putting a screwdriver slot through it, but
Mhm.
my thought process on it was I'd rather struggle getting it in for, a couple minutes rather than have it in and have an ugly slot through it that I look at for years. So, but I did find if you actually raise it up to near its highest point, then it's a lot easier to get your fingers in and kind of manipulate it to thread it in.
Mhm.
And I've used also the tip of a bullet before as well. Like the lead will kind of bite
Yep.
into it a little bit
Yeah.
and help turn it, but just a,
Yeah.
a couple little tricks.
Yeah, that's the
But in the
small part.
future, I might do something. I've thought about putting a hex into the middle of that aperture so that you can use an Allen wrench to get them in and out.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Another note too is it that aperture is threaded number 1040, and so it's not the same as like the Lyman, Redfield, Williams. Those are all 730 seconds 40.
Mhm.
If I use 730 seconds, then the sight would not be able to get low enough, as low as I was trying to achieve with it, because a lot of the sites on the market that you can get that go on top of the receiver, they usually add quite a bit of height over the factory sights. And
Mhm.
so you end up usually needing to change your front sight out to a taller sight in order to get your
Mhm.
zero back. Um, and so I tried to design this to get low enough so that you wouldn't have to do that if you didn't want to.
Mhm.
Um, I still like to change my front sights out anyway, just because I like a post type front sight rather than a bead. But uh, for those people that don't want to bother changing out a front sight, um, I made these so that they would sit low enough. I can't guarantee it'll work on everything because there's so many different uh, parameters. I mean, how they threaded the receiver, if the barrel is even pointed absolutely straight with it.
Mhm.
Um, there's really no such thing as a straight barrel. Even if the outside's perfectly straight, the bore can have just, there are so many different parameters that things can be off in individual rifles, but everyone that I've actually tested it with and that other people have, I mean, I haven't heard of anybody not being able to use a factory height front sight yet
Mhm.
with one of these sights.
Yeah,
And the distance from the top of the receiver to the center of the aperture when it's at its lowest setting is about 5/16 of an inch.
yeah, that's pretty smart. Um, no, beautifully done, Vince. It's excellent. I'm just thinking about front sights, and a lot of people send me pictures of a lot of things, and I'm surprised how many people actually have removed their iron sights, even from lever actions, which is to me pretty weird. But I think for a period of time, maybe a couple of decades, people were just thinking you have to use a low power scope and felt that iron sights made the gun look old or something like this. You can see this one's just about perfect because it's pretty high. So I never even thought about needing to replace anything. Um, it wouldn't be that simple anyway. Well, the blade is simple, but this is completely different from the Marlin. Yeah, I think you've got a great product, and people can buy these where?
KRA Customs.com.
So directly.
KRAsites.com will also get you there.
Okay, and I think I noticed them on maybe Amazon
On eBay. They are on eBay as well.
Day as well, and international orders, no problem.
So far we've done a couple international ones, and we did certainly run into some hiccups the first go around.
Yeah,
Uh, but my wife spent the better part of a day on the phone getting down to the bottom of it, and it turned out to be just incompetence on the part of
yeah,
USPIS, which is our postal police,
right.
basically. It actually cleared through US Customs just fine, and then it got sent back to us. But we did eventually get that out to the customer, though.
Okay,
Uh,
fantastic. All right,
but
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we should let people know about, but we can always have another call. I think that probably covers most of the ground. People will ask me, maybe somebody already did, about different materials. Are you thinking of making them out of different materials? I don't know why someone would ask that, but maybe they're thinking of aluminum. Are you going to stick with steel?
definitely going to stick with steel. I might do them in stainless, um, but I mean, I really like the blued steel myself, even if it goes on a stainless gun. I
Yeah,
like the contrast,
same here.
but some people might prefer stainless. So I've thought about and I am considering in the future doing some stainless ones.
Yeah,
Um, but definitely not aluminum. In my opinion, I think there's a reason they're called iron sights.
yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, I mean, since your sights arrived, I have all kinds of guns, as you know. Some of them with terrible sights, like this really crude rear sight. So I was, of course, this won't be easy. You can see no drilling, nothing, no tapping, but um, you perch one of your sights on here. The accuracy, this is 22 Hornet, and it's got these crude sights.
Oh,
So
neat.
yeah, and I don't want to put it. Look how small this is. It's a baby
Yeah,
rolling block.
yeah, yeah.
You don't want to put a scope on this. But the aperture sight would be. Anyway, I have all kinds of ideas for your site. So I'll
Yeah,
update
if that
yours.
got drilled and tapped, it would be a matter of knowing what the radius is on the barrel right at the breech where it would go, and then I would have to machine a radius basically into the bottom of the sight to be able to fit that, so it kind of wrap around it.
I never even thought of that. Yeah, I was thinking of a lot cruder things, but that would be the right way to go. Okay, excellent. Is there anything else, Vince, or did we cover most of the?
Sure. Actually, I can show you one of the sites that I'm working on. It actually kind of goes in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Well, sort of. I don't have any completely done yet, but this is one that's still in the white. It's not blued yet, but this is going to be just a fixed sight that can go on the same sort of rifles. And this one is threaded 7/32 40, so it'll be able to accept other apertures as well. And I kind of debated whether or not I should even do this idea, but a fixed sight, I think it might actually help out certain people who don't necessarily have a setup where they're so concerned about having micrometer adjustments,
Yeah.
but they want something that's just, you know, bear proof, basically. That's just it's all machined out of one piece of steel, and so it's it there's so many sights when you put them on
Yeah.
that you end up putting the rear sight where you want it, and then you change the front sight to
Hmm.
match it in order to get, like whether you're going to file it down or get a taller one or drift it left and right, and then you leave it there.
Hmm.
Um, and for those situations, something like this, if anybody had any concern about something moving out of adjustment or getting broken or something like
Yeah.
that, and the thought process more was for like a self-defense type of a rifle. I thought I might even want one on my Marlin 1895 guide gun, 4570 that I carry around sometimes. I live in grizzly country, so
Oh,
when I'm hiking around, sometimes I'll carry that around, and just a simple fixed sight
I
might be a
like
good.
the looks of that site a lot. I think the simplicity is great, and I always tell people, if it's not a super precision sight, you may not hit whatever at a long distance, but you're going to hit something, and that sight will accomplish that. I think you'll
Yeah.
sell a lot of them. All right,
Right.
excellent. Thanks for your time, Vince. Take care, and good luck with everything.
Yeah. Thank you.